Hello, hello.
Where'd you get that intro? Oh, you're muted, bro. Terrible start. Terrible start.
I did that intro in the end, so that's funny.
That intro is sick. I want something similar. I was actually going to go on Upwork and look for someone to do that. How long and how hard would it be to get something like that made?
Well, let's talk about it.
Okay.
We offline. We could definitely chat about it.
Okay.
Negotiations already being done. Yeah, he did that. He's really, really good at it. And he included the oh my God at the end, which I think is fantastic. What is going on, guys? You guys might notice something a little bit different today. Jonah is not here. What happened? All right, guys, I'm just going to start from out of the gate, and I'm going to tell you guys what really happened. Jonah couldn't handle all of the non-liberal support that he was looking for on this podcast, right? He wanted more people to support the elderly in leadership, and he wasn't finding it on the channel. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. He wasn't finding it, and he decided, you know what, screw you guys. I want to go vote for Joe Biden, even though he's probably not the president anymore, and I want to do that in peace, and I'm going to do it in Iceland, kick rocks. So Jonah's no longer here. I'm just kidding. None of that's true. Jonah is in Iceland. He's there with his dad for the next 2 weeks. I'm actually really, really excited for him. He did the thing I think we're supposed to do, right? Like he made money and became successful and took his dad on a trip around the world, and they're hanging out together, just father and son doing really, really cool stuff. So he's out for the next few weeks. Love you, bro. Hope you guys are having a great time out there. Keep posting the pictures. Iceland is very cloudy. Have you ever been to Iceland, Jeremy?
I have not been to Iceland before, but I heard that it's greener than Greenland.
Yes. And Greenland is very icy.
Yeah.
So somebody did a fantastic job at the naming of those two locations.
Great marketing right there. Yeah.
So guys, so Jonah's going to be out for the next couple of weeks. So I am here behind the helm of this podcast. And the conversation is, how do we keep it interesting even when Jonah's not here? So we're going to be here doing our best to accomplish just that. So this week I have a couple of guest hosts, one of which is actually here every week. You just may not know it. It's Gianmarco. It says Giamaro. That's what it says on his name. His name is Gianmarco. He's our Italian lover from the other side of the world. He's here and he supports all of the production in the background. But I dragged him here to the front, kicking and screaming today. We're gonna have a good conversation. And then we have the one and only Jeremy Davis, the beautiful gentleman at the bottom here. And I don't know if you guys have not had the pleasure of being introduced to him. You should fix whatever life choice, stop that, and get to know this guy. If it's hard to remember his name, it's literally behind his head. So that should be easy. Jeremy, tell us a little bit about yourself, bro.
We've been longtime friends. I mean, in real estate and investment. And I think one reason I'm here is you and I have had some heated conversations that go on for like 4 hours on the phone about the dumbest shit. So you knew that we could ramble on for hours if we needed that. So, we kind of pulled like a Kamala Harris, and we officially nominated myself as the new co-host without an election.
Right? We didn't even ask anybody's opinion. We just made the decision.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, Jonah was out sick, right? We'll say he was out sick, and then I just scooted in there, and it's official. So nice.
Is this safe to be here? That he's out liberal?
He's out liberal, yeah.
He's out liberal. He needed a mental health day.
Yep.
Okay. Is that fair? I don't know if that's fair. I apologize for anybody who's needed a mental health day. We love you guys. So yes, Jeremy will be electing or announcing his new co-host shortly. So you guys just keep your eyes peeled for that. But that being said, guys, we're going to get into the conversation today. Jeremy's right. We talked about a lot of stuff. Today's topic, just to be clear for everybody who's here, was actually going to be something completely different. Today, we were going to talk about God versus science. Is the theory of evolution real? And I think we're still going to do that, but I think we're going to put that to next week because Gianmarco was going to play one side of that argument, and I don't know if he was equipped for that argument, so he may need support. And who knows, Jeremy, he's going to bring some scientists. Jeremy, who also plays a scientist on TV, may come as support for that. But today, in lieu of God versus science, which if you're interested in that conversation, please let us know. If you know any scientists or any creationists or any people who believe that we were seeded here by Sumerians, Any of those people, let them know we're going to be debating and have them come and bring their opinion. But today we're going to talk about some different stuff. And the reason we went the direction we went today, one of the big reasons is because I think that it's pertinent, right? If you guys saw the title of the show, basically the show is titled, Is Our World Coming to an End? And as dark as that sounds, I think it's also a fair question. Because if you look around today, you turn on the TV, you go on to social media at pretty much any point, with the exception of the ones that don't like telling us the truth, there is some really, really interesting things that are going down. And I really just think that it's worth having the conversation today. So today we're going to be talking about a couple of different things. One, we're going to be talking about what happened in Japan with the Japanese market. How does it affect us? Should we be worried? We're going to be talking about our own stock market. Isn't it a crash? Are we in a recession? There have been reports that we're actually in a recession, whether you guys know it or not. So is that a real thing that we have to be concerned? And is there actual data supporting that? Or is it just, people having, pontificating in the background? What's going on in Iran? Is there about to be a war in the Middle East, a very serious war that could trickle over into a world war? There's huge riots going on in the UK right now. There's concerns about Sharia law getting passed all over the world. Ireland's involved in this whole situation. Sharia law police have been implemented in New York, potentially, some people are saying. And then randomly, we have this person that I don't even know has been officially decided as the presidential nominee that has already selected a VP. We made some jokes about it, but we're actually going to talk about it. So we're going to get into all of the things today. I think it's going to be fun. As always, guys, if you guys are here, you guys are watching, love to have you as a part of the podcast. I did not post on Instagram, which I noticed makes a huge difference in the numbers. But it's okay. If you guys want to be a part of the conversation, come join us. If not, we'll always be here, hopefully, next week. That being said, let's get into it. Japan. Let's start with Japan. Let's take some time to talk about that. What is going on in Japan right now? Jeremy, you said you had absolutely no clue. You have not heard about the Japan thing, yeah?
Well, yes and no. What I was being more clear on is I know that Japan and our stock market, they're all intertwined. And I know that Japan had a major drop. But what I actually specifically asked was, in addition to the global market economy and where things are going, did something in addition happen in Japan that I was not aware of? So like I'm pulling it up right now on my screen just to see if there's anything that I'm missing. But I will say this, that the Nikkei dropped 10% after plunging a day earlier. So like they are getting hammered. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to what's called carry trades. And carry trades are really the problem. Are you familiar with carry trades, either one of you guys? Jamarco, I think you're a little familiar with carry trades.
Yeah, a little bit. What I understand that happened there is like there was an arbitrage market that they were able to make happen, right? Because Japan increased the interest rate of 0.25, all of that went up in the fumes. Also, the stock market in America dipped a little bit, and so that caused a serious situation between the people that were getting loans in Japan and investing in the United States. They were leveraging the money over here, so that created a bit of a situation.
Yeah, so let's talk about both of those independently for a little bit. So what's a carry trade? As a lot of you guys know, that because of what's happened over the last couple of years, really starting with COVID, inflation has gotten extremely high in the United States. Inflation is the increase of interest rates to compensate for all of the printing of cash that took place previous to that. Well, Japan was a nation that did not participate in increasing their interest rates. They actually had negative interest rates. So what happened? What was happening is people in the markets, what people were doing is they were borrowing Japanese yen at a low interest rate because it was cheaper to borrow money in the Japanese yen. But they were using that gap in that interest rates to come over here to the United States and invest that leveraged money in American stocks. Hence the arbitrage that Jamarco was talking about. Well, what happened? That means that by default, when you have extremely low interest rates, just the difference between interest rates, it already puts you in a profit. You combine that with the fact that because their interest rates were so low, their economy was dipping. That means the yen was worth less. So the yen is already worth less, which means that when you take the yen and put it into the American dollar, your money now increases in value. You combine that to the fact that you're borrowing it at negative interest rate as compared to what you're doing, you're already increasing in value. So the nature of moving that money over, even if your investment doesn't do well, you're already in a net positive. You combine that with making a good investment and your money goes up, You're making money hand over fist, if you will, by doing that. Warren Buffett and a lot of major institutions were doing this at scale for a long time. What happened? Japan decided to raise their interest rates, which created this trickle-down effect. And in summary, without going into all the details, it caused a huge crash in Japan, the worst crash since 1987. And that trickle-down effect, go ahead.
They're like $10 trillion leverage right now, while the economy is $4.1 trillion. So
yeah,
that's massive.
What happens? So if I borrow money from Japan because it's cheap and I invest it in the United States because I'm making money, but you decide to raise the interest rates, that has a trickle-down effect on the economy. The American economy is already having problems. My money's doing bad. Your money's doing bad. What am I going to do? I'm going to essentially file bankruptcy, which means you're not getting your money back. Now you're, very, very, you're a lot of money underwater. And that's what's happening in Japan right now. Simultaneously, which there's obviously some interactive parts of it, right? One is causing the other. But on Friday, jobs reports, which actually scared a lot of people, which we really should we'll get into because this has to do with, are we in a recession? Job reports came out and scared a lot of people. So now you have the United States economy going down pretty significantly and scaring a lot of people. So independently, the United States economy is already struggling. Combined with the fact that what happened with Japan took place, it's actually really scary. Now, if you're not an economist, which I am far from an economist, right? I worked in this space for a little while. I know very little about it, but even if you're an economist, you're looking at this and you're getting really, really concerned. But if you're not, you're just an everyday person. Here's why I think that this is important for us to talk about. The average person doesn't understand the significance of this. Unless you got money in the markets, unless you're seeing your investments go down before your eyes, you probably don't care. At the very most, you care because a politician's going to use it as leverage for their political campaign. But the reality is this affects us. Now, if it doesn't affect you now, 6, 7, 8, 9 months from now, it could very significantly affect you. And that's why I wanted to bring it up today, because the question that I have is what's happening in these markets a sign that scary stuff is about to take place? And if so, what can we do about it? What should we do about it? I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts?
All right. If I may. So there's a couple things that, transitioning from Japan over to the US stock market, there's a couple of different things that all happen at once, right? This is like a very, very perfect storm scenario on Friday. Let's keep in mind, by the way, that the S&P 500 is still really up. Okay. So it's still doing great. S&P 500 is fantastically crushing it. I think it's only down like about a 1% off of last week, but NASDAQ got crushed. Okay. NASDAQ got crushed because of two main reasons. Number one, what are our three top performers in the NASDAQ? And remember, NASDAQ, guys, is a technology centric stock trading market, right? So we have Apple, we have Microsoft, and recently NVIDIA became one of the $3 trillion evaluated property or stocks that are held in the NASDAQ. When they all came out, or I think actually Microsoft and then I think Apple prior to this point came out with their projections and where their pricing or where their everything was at, their financing, where their balance sheet is, all that kind of stuff. It came out to say that they spent a lot of money on AI investigation and AI research, a lot of money. And the return is not going to be coming anytime soon. And so they were hoping to start monetizing that a little bit quicker. And they realized that after investing all this money, the payback, the revenue that they were hoping to generate from that is not going to be coming. So those tech companies took a major, major hit. On top of that, we also know that the job report came out, and that showed that we are definitely in a recession. But also the last thing to keep in mind is that the Fed announced that they'd be dropping rates right around this time frame. And what happens in the stock market? We all know the saying, buy the rumor, sell the news. Okay. The stock market had priced in the rumor of the rates dropping right around this time of the year. So that was priced into the market. And then when the Fed said, we're not dropping rates yet, inflation is still high, we're still waiting for inflation to drop down below to a reasonable level, that kind of crushed the rumor. And so then everyone said, oh shit, we've been planning for rates to drop this entire time. And that put a lot of companies on hold. It made them not invest yet. Like for me, some of my property, one of my properties specifically, I was trying to get it on the market in springtime. It got delayed, which meant that it was going to be summertime. And now I've intentionally meant to not put it on the market until the end of summer, until just before the election. So now I'm actually strategically putting my properties on the market so that when that rate drop happens, that's when I'm going to sell. And so a lot of businesses did the exact same thing. And now they're having to shift all of their economy based around this. So I'd say that that's probably like the three main reasons that the stock market dropped. My question to you guys, though, is where is it going to go from here? Are we going to keep getting crushed? Do you think that people are going to buy back into the market, seeing that this was a discount sale and now they can get in at a lower price? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, Warren Buffett has what, $185 billion cash. Apple has $200 billion in cash. Facebook, $100 billion in cash. I think they will buy. I just don't think they don't know where to invest right now. They're just waiting. So I don't know how long it's going to take, but you're definitely right. Hard time ahead, I think.
Yeah. Have you guys familiar? Are you guys familiar with the SOM rule by chance?
The SOM rule, like sommelier?
No, that's different. No, of course you would think about that. No, SOM rule. Essentially, here I'm going to pull it up and I'm going to share a screen. So, share screen. Boom. All right. You guys see this? So this is the SOM rule, right? You just look it up. It's obviously named after this person. And it's an indicator, not the indicator. It's an indicator that a recession is underway. And that indicator states that anytime the unemployment goes above 5, anytime it goes above 5, that is a huge primary indicator that we are in a recession, or we're poised for a recession. You can go back historically and you can see all of these numbers and you can see what happens. I won't go into what that means, but if you notice, right, 2007, 2008, 2020, right? So these are very, very clear indicators. Well, what people aren't realizing is that on Friday, that point was above 5. I think it was 0.55 was what it was rated. So what the concern that I believe is, as it relates to what that job report is and why it turned into a crash in the market, I think is partially related to this, because economists and people who work in the markets understand what that means. Now, this is usually a trailing indicator. So when we see these numbers, it's usually not the next day that we see the impact in the markets. It's normally over the course of months. Now, whether that's 6 months, 9 months, or 18 months, just depends on the situation. There's a number of factors. However, I think that when you compare this rule, the fact that our unemployment numbers are where they are, you combine it with everything else going on in the world right now, which we're going to be discussing today, combined with the fact that we're in an election year, which I think is a unique little caveat to this whole entire thing, it really, really begs the question, do we have something to worry about? Like, is there a problem in the world that we need to start stocking up and saving cash? So I'm interested in y'all's opinion on this. Let's do this. I'm going to ask y'all's opinion. I'll give my opinion now. But then I also want to ask the same question again at the end of this podcast. After we've covered all of this stuff, I'd like to hear y'all's opinions on this as well. The question is this. Do you guys think we have to worry? Is stuff about to get really, really bad in, let's just call it our country, in our world, in our country? Should we start stocking up some beans and stocking up our cash and preparing, or nah, that's a little bit too much? I think we're going to be fine. It's an election year and we're in good hands with the Democrats or whoever, and everything's going to be okay. What are y'all thoughts about it? Jeremy, what do you think, bro?
All right. I'm scared to answer this because I'm going to lose like half of my user base. So, all right. You say save up cash. I say save up ammo. I'm a prepper, man. I'm a
All
prepper.
right.
I'm a hardcore prepper. One reason that I left Los Angeles during COVID was I saw the impending doom, and so I left to Utah, where it's a little bit, I feel, safer environment. When I think about where the world is going, you know some of my history. I've dealt with some shit. I've dealt with a lot of evil in this world, and I'm always the person that says something can happen at any point. I walk around, I have a concealed carry. I always carry a gun with me for that exact reason, that I'm never the person that says, it's not going to happen to me. I'm the person that says it will happen at some point, and I'd rather be prepared than unprepared. And so to that whole argument of stocking up beans and stuff like that, yeah, I have a little bit of a storage area for food. I'm not saying that I don't look at that sometimes and I go, that's excessive, Jeremy. You don't need all that. So every so often I'll go in there and I'll grab like a Campbell's soup or something and I'll eat it myself. But, my father-in-law now, on the other hand, he's got like 5 gun safes racked with guns. For me, myself, I go, how many guns am I going to be able to carry if some shit, hits the fan?
All of
One
them.
or two, right? So, I mean, as many as I can carry. I'm just going to put it in my backpack. I'm going to get one of those expanded backpacks like in video games. I just stuff it in there.
Anyway. It's like a video game because they can put unlimited crap in there.
Right. So no, here's what I'll say to this. Do I think that we're going to be seeing a war hit the soil of the U.S. More than it already has? And let me caveat on that. Do I think we're going to have a foreign nation put boots on our soil anytime soon? No, I don't think that's going to happen yet. Do I think that there is a higher potential of some form of civil war? Yes, I do think that that's a potential, especially seeing what we're seeing with the media right now, seeing what the elections are happening, seeing that we now have somebody in office that nobody elected, okay, that just happened to appear there, like, oh, Joe, you're not feeling well. Well, now I'm going to take the throne. And again, I see that let me put it this way. When Trump was in office, the economy, the nation really, really did well. As much as the left is going to say that, oh my God, we had some evil person in office that grabs pussies. Our economy did great. And by the way, sorry if this is a family-friendly podcast.
Well, I mean, families usually come from there anyways. So
right. So our economy did fantastic. We grew so well, and there's no argument behind that. People may not have liked who our president was at the time, but when Biden took office, you'll notice that it all happened right around the same time. COVID hits, Biden takes office, and what do we have? We have nothing but riots. Antifa gains in strength. Black Lives Matters gains in strength. We start having so much turmoil and chaos in every metropolitan city, and primarily every blue metropolitan city had a lot of problems. Do you remember what happened in Seattle? Little whatever it's called. This is
the whole city, right?
Yeah, this is my land. Whatever. So what I see happening now is a lot of the right, all of the conservatives, all of the Republicans. And by the way, let me separate a difference here. I don't think it's no longer about Republican versus Democrat. It's liberal versus conservative. And really what that stems from is it's logical versus emotional. And I see that liberal comes from a lot more emotional standpoint. They have a lot more feelings in what's going on around them. And conservatives go, no, man, your chromosomes tell me what you are. Right. There's no emotion behind it. There's no feelings behind it. It's all logic. And so that has been a battle that's been happening now for a while. But now what happened over the past 4 years? The left in the media controlled everything that was taking place, and everybody started getting indoctrinated on what the left media wanted us to see. Now there's some pushback. A lot of the liberal people that believed what they believed for the previous 4 years are actually turning their opinions now. They're seeing that now some more truth is being told, and they go, wow, my thought on what was happening in the economy or happening in the nation has now changed because I'm seeing a little bit more transparency with media. I'm seeing a little bit more of the right side of the argument. And now it's almost like a light bulb is going off above their head. They go, fuck, I've been lied to, and I've been lied to for a while. And so what I see happening now is I see I see the right is really beginning to push back. It's kind of like when you were in high school or middle school and you were getting bullied and someone's pushing you and pushing you and pushing you. You're getting pushed into a corner till eventually you go, I'm done with this. And you snap back and you punch, you kick, you bite, you do whatever you can because you know what? I'm sick and tired of feeling this way. And now I'm going to push back on and be aggressive about it. That's what we're seeing right now. Look at the Olympics. Can we even talk about the Olympics, the opening ceremony? What happened there? Hundreds of thousands of conservatives fought back on this. And this is the lowest fan base or whatever you want to call it of the Olympics in the past like 20 something years. People are boycotting it. People are not happy about it. And so what I'm basically saying is for the past 4 years, the liberal agenda, the media on that side really, really pushed what they wanted the world to see. And now we're going no more. And when I say we, I mean just society is going no more. You're not going to, I don't give a shit about.
But do you think that's true? Let me ask you this. I hear you, and I'm not going to say whether I agree or disagree with you.
Okay.
Here's my question to you, right? Because what you're essentially, in summary, you're saying, all right, the left got played, and now the left is realizing they got played, and they're opening their eyes. Okay, my question to you is, what percentage? Right? Because we have Jonah, right? My co-host in this podcast, who is on the left. Jonah's not a dumb guy. He don't feel played at all. He is flying the liberal flag with pride, right? He sees nothing wrong. He actually defended Kamala, just what's happening there, right? So what percentage do you think, because I believe that there are some people who are starting to feel a little disillusioned and they're starting to feel like, all right, I don't like this. Where's that number for you if we did a poll?
If we did a poll, I would say a good 10 to 15% are moving over to the right side. I'd say
what percentage?
What's that?
What percentage?
I'd say 10 to 15%.
Okay, I think that's a fair number. I could probably agree with that.
Yeah.
I think you could argue up to 25%. I think that's generous, but
Sure.
you know what I mean? Okay, so your thoughts are it's bad. You're not just stocking tomato soup, you're stocking bullets. And you want to make sure that if something happens, hopefully it doesn't, you're ready. You're not comfortable yet.
I mean, I'm comfortable with where I sit.
But you're not comfortable that everything's hunky-dory, is what I mean.
Right, exactly right. And that's what I'm saying is that when this election happens, I'm just going to say this very, very straightforward. If Trump doesn't win, there's going to be some problems. There's definitely going to be some problems. I mean, like, let's look at right now. Who was it? I want to say I just read this 2 days ago. I think it was like an Arizona senator just had felony charges pressed against him that they discovered that in Arizona, 1.3 million voters more than the population of Arizona were registered to vote in the last election. And it's now been discovered. And we always wondered, why did Arizona go blue? Didn't make any sense there. There's actual charges being brought to these officials now that are actually showing that, hey, there was some really funny business. And so we know that Kamala has the lowest approval ratings. She rock bottom approval ratings, worse than Joe Biden actually had. And so what I'm saying is, if Trump doesn't win, something's going to snap. Something's going to snap. Someone on the right is going to go, you know what? I've had enough. It's probably going to be someone from West Virginia, him and his cousins and brothers and sisters and girlfriends and all that stuff. They're going to snap back and something's going to happen. Now, what happens if Trump does win? Then the left are going to riot. And no offense to the left, that's what you guys do. Right? Like,
okay, but let me play devil's advocate, right? Because
okay.
Jonah's not here. Did I just call Jonah the devil? I'm not sure. So let's play devil's advocate here for a minute. What you're saying though is the right comfortably attacks the left for being quick to break stuff and burn things. Yet you just said that the right was going to do the same thing. So does that make them any better?
As I was saying 5 minutes ago, with getting pushed back into a corner, further and further back into a corner. We went through the last election. A lot of us, and you know what? I'll even say this much. I don't know if I fully believe that the election was stolen, but there's enough evidence to suggest that things were not done correctly. We see now that there's a lot of the Democratic politicians. They're pushing for illegal immigration. They're pushing for those illegal immigrants to then get registered to be voters. We see that now. A recent law just passed. I forget which city it was. It was definitely a blue city, that they now said that all illegal immigrants can get driver's licenses.
Yeah, I think it was in California.
Yeah, I forget which one it is, but exactly right. So we see that a lot of the left politicians are pushing for the vote of the illegal immigrant, which is why the border policy was as relaxed as it was for the past 4 years. And if you even look at, Trump saying we need to shut down the border, and they attacked him for that. Joe and Kamala attacked him for that, and now they're repeating exactly what Trump said. We need now to shut down the border. And so my whole point to that is, Daniel, is that the left has always been very quick to snap into a riot. They've always been quick to burn things and break windows. Okay. And the right, let's look at it this way. Trump just gets an attempted assassination. And what happens? No riots, nothing, right? Just we're here to watch what happens. We're here to uncover the evidence. We want to see what's going on and stuff like that. So now what my point was is that if the election goes in favor of Kamala, there will be no argument to say that there's 100% truth to that election. Someone's going to snap and go, you know what? I'm fucking tired of being lied to. I'm tired of this stuff. And then they're going to load up and something's going to happen. And then, like I said, on the opposite side, if Trump wins, we're going to see the left begin to riot. We already know that's going to happen. Like, I'm sure all of us can agree. If Trump takes office and wins that election, there will be cars that are burned, right?
But I think they're going to try to crash the market as well, if that happens.
That could be. That could be as well.
So, Jamarco, what are your thoughts, man? Like, Jamarco, what are your thoughts, right? Because we're getting preliminary. I'm going to go to the end. I don't think Jeremy's answer is going to change. But we'll ask this again at the end of the podcast. What do you think? What do you think? Are you prepping? Are you stocking up toilet paper? Or are you thinking things are good?
Well, I believe if something goes on, it would be easier to go where there is nothing happening. I don't know, Philippines, some area like that. Now, Philippines has an issue with China, but, some countries where nothing is happening, I don't know, Uruguay, Paraguay, something easier, and wait until things go off. Obviously, I do believe something will happen, one way or the other. Doesn't matter who wins, who's in the White House. There's going to be a crash. There's going to be riots. I think it's pretty evident at this point. What I'm asking is, what are you thinking? Because I know you've been preparing a lot for that.
Me?
Yeah.
I say this all the time, guys. You guys will probably hear me say this more as I talk more and more about my thoughts and beliefs on these particular topics. I think a lot of this is a game, and these people are not here to save you. I think you're foolish if you think Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, or Joe Biden are here to save you. Now, are there a side that's got stronger benefits towards politics or policies than another? Sure. But at the end of the day, they're not my saviors. It's my responsibility to make sure that I am taken care of, that my household is in order. And I think that that's all of our responsibilities. I think it's foolish. I think it's naive for us to think that the political system we live under is responsible for taking care of us. And it's crazy that that's an ideology that's getting pushed on us. It's never worked, guys. It's never worked. It's your responsibility. And so come what may, I don't know what's going to come. I personally think it's about to get bad. I think it's going to get worse than bad. I think it's going to get worse than people expected. And I think it's our job to be prepared. Here's the thing. I could be wrong. I actually hope I'm wrong. I would love nothing more than our economy to soar and money be really easy to make and everybody can sign up for my coaching program so they can get good at sales and make even more money. I really, really would love that. However, if people can't eat, they're going to be thinking about other stuff. And if you get prepared today and you have all kinds of food set aside, and to Jeremy's point, you got some bullets to go with it. You don't eat the bullets, just for anybody who's unclear on how that works. It's a different podcast though. But I think if you have that and everything's fine, you're good. Right? It's one of those you'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So that's my stance on the situation. I think we are not looking at positive times any way you cut it. But I do think that there is still light at the end of the tunnel. And maybe it's our job to be that light. And that's how I look at that.
So you guys think it's going to be war, or it's going to be riots, or it's going to be civil war?
Well, let's talk about that. Let's
Okay.
talk about that, right? So we talk about riots. Here's the thing. One of the things I've said time and time again is that most people in the West live under this naive assumption that this is how life works everywhere. Because your soy latte heat was the biggest concern you had that day, you actually think that those things are a problem because you've never been shot at on a daily basis. You've never had to wonder if you're going to get blown up when you step outside your house. But that's a reality for people today in this world. I have a friend that some of you guys know
You have
whose
friends?
family is, I do have friends. Well, I mean, they pretend to like me. It's a thing. Anyways, they have family in Iran right now, right this minute. And they're concerned if a bomb's going to blow up on them. That's a real concern. Y'all's coffee temperature or flavor availability is not a concern. Stop it. Grow up. But we live under this naive reality that can't reach us. Just because you've never experienced something doesn't mean that it's not possible. And we have to stop being naive to that reality. A civil war is a real possibility. And it's getting closer and closer the more this crap happens, right? The UK, Jamarco, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how this is closer to the West than you realize. Because a lot of you guys, if you talk about on a geopolitical scale, you guys think about, okay, Russia and the Ukraine, they're at war. The Middle East, they're at war. But that stuff's not going to trickle over to other places. Oh, okay. What happened in the UK this weekend, bro?
No, I mean, there was a migrant killed 3 young girls that were British, and they were dead. And so because they were dead, riots started.
Killed them, and so they were dead.
Yes, he killed them, and so they were dead.
He
Exactly.
killed them until they died from it.
Yes, that's what he did.
I have something to laugh at, but I apologize. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, they're dead, and so riots have started. Riots have started all over the country from both sides, right? One side wants Sharia law, the other side doesn't want migrants because they're all on welfare. They were taken to bring cheap labor, but then they're not working, they're on welfare. And so they're violent. They have taken a police car apart. Again, I guess because of I have family in England. I have to ask them, but because of the way the laws are set, police is not shooting at them. And they know that. So they're just going for it. And yeah, it's not good. It's not looking good. I actually did send you a video that explains a little better what's going on with it in the details. So if you want, you can pull it up.
Which one is it? I'll hold on. Let me look at the chat.
I'll mark it for you. But yeah, it's been pretty crazy. Pretty crazy weekend. A lot of people judge, right? And that's not good because apparently the news are not judging the migrants, are judging the worker force, which happens to be British. So that's creating a lot of tension, and I think that's what's probably coming over here, right? Let's call it migrants wars, situations, riots. That's probably what's coming over here because with the affluence of people that came here. Now again, here you have guns, but I would still think something might happen, right? Because it's happened I've seen it in Germany.
Hold on, I'm pulling it up right now. Is this the video? Is this the one that you're talking about?
Yes, I'm talking about that one.
All right, let's play this out. Let's see what it says.
Under Britain. Keir Starmer and the lovey media establishment can't just call everyone far right and hope this problem goes away. Now, let me make something very, very clear. Setting migrant hotels on fire is wrong. Having swastika tattoos is wrong. Being a racist is wrong. Those things are far right, and there is no place for them in British society. However, there are millions and millions of ordinary people in Britain who are not far right. They're just fed up of being ignored and lied to about their legitimate concerns by politicians and the establishment media. They don't like the fact that there was little to no political will to call out grooming gangs. They don't like the fact that as of Friday, apparently more than 3,000 illegal immigrants have come across the channel since Labour scrapped the Rwanda scheme, and that we're all paying for that. They don't like the fact that an asylum seeker stabbed an elderly man to death in Hartlepool, or that another one stabbed a young lad to death in Bournemouth, or that we now have machete madness every single day. They don't like the idea, do they? that the media tries to gaslight them sometimes, like the BBC saying 27 police officers were injured during a largely peaceful anti-racism protest, or Sky News wanting to talk about the far-right problem on the streets, but seemingly getting a bit squiffy and trying to avoid what appeared to be ethnic minority males with weapons, also on the same streets.
We've got here, we're just going to move away because this,
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
with weapons, potential weapons in his hand, he said to me, no, it's all right, you're safe, but you know, you can just see the level of activity.
I mean, is it really just a far-right problem, this? Or ITV thinking that at this moment in time, when our government and our Home Secretary specifically appear to have lost control of Britain, that it's a good idea for Yvette Cooper to be interviewed by her own husband.
Can I ask, because we've talked about this a few times in the...
So we saw a little bit of the riot right there for a second, right? There's some really, really bad versions of this. Basically, whole streets are burned down. Yes?
Yeah, on fire. Cars are being destroyed. And these are locals, right? From the migrants.
Talk me through it in your opinion, right? Because let's develop an argument for this.
Yeah.
I don't want to just I have my conclusions. I think we all have conclusions. One thing I really want to encourage in a podcast, at least this one, is to have independent thought, right? I just got this crazy idea that we should think for ourselves and we should research things outside of what our own confirmation bias and come to conclusions, even if those conclusions are uncomfortable for us. So if we had to develop an argument that there is potential for real concern on our streets in our country, the United States,
yeah.
In your opinion, how does what's happening there trickle over here?
Well, it's going to be the blue states if it's going to be anything, for sure. I don't know if it will ever escalate to red states. It might. But yeah, I believe the states that are more inclined to take care of the migrants and create a solution for the migrants and get the migrants into the state and try to put them somewhere in hotels and try to create arrangement for them and put them, so to speak, on welfare. Those states are probably going to be the ones that are more at risk. The states that have a lot of regulation against guns, that's probably what's going to happen. And
so you're pointing something out. And I want to get your opinion on this because I heard something a little bit different. You touched on it just now. A big point that you've mentioned over the last couple of days about this surrounds immigration. I see a big glaring issue with gun laws here, right? Gun laws are a gigantic issue in the United States. It's a big conversation that people have a problem with. We could do a whole podcast surrounding that. What's interesting to me is they point to countries with extremely strict gun laws as a example of safety.
Yeah.
You got the UK with people just running around slashing people up with machetes. How is that better? How is that? You know what I mean?
Switzerland. You see, this is not happening in Switzerland because the regulations are very different, like very close to the American regulations in Switzerland. So this is happening in Italy, it's happening in Germany, in France, in England, in Netherlands, and it's a big deal. It's a very big deal. So
you think the way this comes to us is UK's liberal policies as it relates to immigration, their strict policies as it relates to gun laws we're seeing is what I'm hearing here, because I don't want to assume, is what you're saying is that those laws, we're seeing how that's becoming a problem in their land, and we're a couple of steps away from that becoming a problem here. Is that the implication?
Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, everything was fine until they started bringing people from a different culture into a specific culture. And Britain is very Christian, but there is a large Muslim community. However, now it's becoming very large, and it's predominantly young male, right? And they are all coming in welfare, and that causes a situation where they want specific rules for themselves that don't necessarily apply to Christian, like Sharia law. So that's probably what's causing it, and it's a clashing between two different cultures. And I think it's going to happen here. Now, if you're under the Republican administration in January, I'm not sure how that's going to happen. I think it may happen before, and if there is a Democratic the Democratic administration in January, I think it will happen. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. It's a little bit confusing to understand where they're trying, like how are politicians in England, in France, in Germany, perhaps in the future in America, not seeing this, that this is going to create a necessary clash, right? Now, Christians are very welcoming everywhere, but that also has a limit, I feel.
Allow me. First of all, I want to make a request, Daniel. When you do have the gun debate, I need to be here for that one. Okay.
Happily.
So let me add to this real quick. I don't want to get into the conversation of gun control, but what I will say is those countries that have the most restrictive gun laws out there also happen to typically be islands, and they're not bordered up against Mexico. That's literally their neighbor. That's literally trafficking humans, drugs, firearms, things like that. And here's the funny part, and I'll just touch on this for 1 second. If America ever outlawed guns like Australia, like New Zealand, like the UK, like they've done over there, that would literally open up the largest new black market for Mexico to then sell guns to the US. The reason that Mexico doesn't sell guns to the US is because we sell them to ourselves, right? So that's one major argument as to why gun control will never work in the US for that one reason. Now, moving away from gun control, I don't believe that you say that the Muslim aspect brings into a clash. There's one thing about America that I actually love about America is that we have always been very accepting about religious differences. And what there's always been a separation down the middle, and it's usually been political. It's been Democrat versus Republican. That's usually what the battle has always been. Religion has never really been a focus of adding fuel to the fire. There's never been Jews against Christians. There's never been Muslims against Catholics, whatever that is, because we've always been a very, very melting pot when it comes to religion. Now, if we did introduce a third party into America where now it's going to be clashing, what is that actually going to do? It's going to bring the left and the right together to now focus on that new enemy. And that's why I don't believe that something is going to come from a foreign force. I don't think that someone else is going to come onto our soil and create these problems. I still think the problem is going to lie in the left and the right battling each other because a third party is not going to be able to survive what would happen if they became the target of America.
Well, what I guess I'm saying is identity politics, right? Basically relating to the fact, look at them, you should be helping them, not try to kick them out. Because that's what happened in England, right? That's why I'm saying I see it there. Yes, part of that I do believe is religious, right? I do believe there is a clash between you want your laws in a country that doesn't represent those laws. But also, I believe it's a clash between left and right, where the left wants to integrate more people because it can eventually help economy, while the right wants to make sure it's done properly. And I think that's where the major conflict might happen in the next 6 to 12 months.
So, but this is interesting, right? So let's break this down from both sides. So we talk about immigration. Then if the concern is immigration, that that's where the parallel is between the UK. Ireland was having huge riots, right? And I'll look and I'll see if I can find the clips to demonstrate this to you guys. Guys, this is bigger than you guys realize. Think of some of the biggest riots or rallies that we've seen in the United States. That's what's happening as we speak in the UK and in Ireland. And it's all surrounding these issues. So you talk about the Muslim, influx that's happened in the UK, and the numbers for people that are Muslim in that area are they're extremely large. But I guess the question would be, is that an issue that we have in the United States? Because most of the time we talk about immigration in this country, it's not that Muslims are coming and trying to deploy Sharia law. It's that immigrants are coming over and taking our jobs, if you will, so to speak. And I'm throwing air quotes around that because those are just some of the arguments. There's different arguments depending on who you talk to, whether it's just they're trafficking drugs, they're trafficking humans, they're trafficking traffic. Do you think that that's a concern here? Do we have a Muslim concern here with the implementation of Sharia law, Jamarco? Do you think that's an issue that we share, or is their immigration issue different from our immigration issue?
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry, there was some.
No, it was a long question. I can't. Do you think that their immigration issue is different from our immigration issue? Richard,
I think
Jasper lives under. Sorry, bro. Richard, Jasper. To address this real quickly, I've talked about this a lot. I love Jasper. Jasper lives under the lovely fairy tale that governments are good and they love you and they want what's best for you and they would never do anything to harm you. This is his belief. I wonder if he has any example where gun control has been successful. I'm sure he does. And we should have him on that podcast to debate Jeremy on that.
Would love it.
Joe Marco, go ahead, bro. I'm sorry.
No, I do believe it's the same issue that's going to happen over here. I think the immigration I've seen immigration. I come from Europe, right? I've seen immigration happening in Italy, Spain, France at the same level that is happening here now. So I feel that's the direction we're going. This is a very different country. The rules are different. So we might react differently over here. However, I think the same problem is coming. That's
interesting. So you think the same problem when it comes to Sharia law or when it comes to just immigration causing riots?
Sharia law will be a part of it. I don't think it will happen in Florida, but that's something that I think it's gonna eventually happen in some areas. Like you were mentioning something about New York this morning. I have to check on that too. However, it might be a larger problem.
Let me share this. This is very interesting, right? So I'm going to share. Let me see if I can just share. How do I share this screen? I don't want to have to. Let's do a window. Let's share this window. You're not going to have audio, but that's fine. Can you guys see this? Okay, cool. So this is the UK right now. For God's sake.
That looks like Mad Max.
Right? It's crazy.
So it is really bad out there. So as a matter of fact, like I looked this up. I'm gonna have to share this with audio in order for you guys to see this. So we stop share. Let me share this with audio. Instagram. Where's Instagram?
While you're sharing that, Daniel, and taking the next 20 minutes to do so.
Shut up. It's right here.
You got it.
Oh, yeah. That's
try to mention. This one. So here is, I'll give my opinion on this, but this is interesting. Obviously, I saw this morning. Let's see.
Cars roaming their neighborhoods like police squads. These Muslim community patrols just began operating in Brooklyn this year, with members dressed like police officers and driving cars identical to police squad cars. Even other Muslims have raised questions about the need for the patrols, with residents expressing fears this is just another form of Sharia law enforcement in the area. Others denounce residents for drinking, claiming this is a Muslim area and alcohol is not permitted.
They're alarmed after seeing Muslim community patrols driving through their neighborhoods in what looked like police squad cars.
No.
So I don't know what's legitimate. What you can do is when you look up those squad cars that the Muslim gentleman was standing in front of, that's a real thing. It's called muslimcps.org. I'll throw the website here. This is an actual look. I will show this to you guys. This is an actual website. So I don't know if that newscast was real. What I can tell you is that this is a real thing. Muslim Community Patrol is a very real thing.
Well, that's a real website.
Yeah, it is a real website. Let me say that. So I mean, I guess we could do more research on this.
Just so you know, there was something similar with the Chinese in Los Angeles. I think it was Los Angeles or close to that area, Arcadia, that area. Very similar. A couple months ago, somebody shared it with me. So the question I have is this expanding into a direction where we are trying to, because we're trying to integrate a larger community of people, also legislation might change around it?
Okay, so Bertie's throwing out an interesting perspective. There are Orthodox Jewish police in LA. Now, when you say that, meaning that there are specific police enforcing Hebrew or Jewish law, or they just happen to be Jewish police force? I'm interested, Bertie, in more details on that. Now, to be clear, I have zero issue with Muslims, right? I got great friends that are Muslims. I am familiar with the Muslim belief system to a degree. I'm not Muslim. I know that there's a pretty clear discrepancy between Muslim belief systems, right? There are extremists who have extreme belief systems. There are some who consider themselves different from extremists. And there are some that say that the Quran's the Quran. And whether you call yourself an extremist or not, the Quran says the same thing. It's just in how you're reading it. Now, that is a different topic for a different day. I guess that the question that I would be asking for you, Jamarco, because you've brought this up a couple of times, you've talked about it over the last couple of days. Are you saying, in your opinion, that that is a real concern? Are you thinking that there is an actual concern for Sharia law to be attempted to be enforced? We're seeing it larger in Europe or the UK, and you're saying that's a thing that's going to happen here? Or is the UK just an example?
Well, again, let's stay by the facts. The facts are they want Sharia law implemented in Europe, in areas of England, in areas of France, in areas of Germany, and I don't know if that happened in Italy, but for sure in these places. So if that is an issue there, I don't see why there should be somebody asking the same thing here. So I see that coming. Now, is that the whole problem? Is that the problem about Muslims? No, the problem is about extremists of any kind. So that's what I think we're going.
Jeremy, what are your thoughts on?
I think it's okay to have patrol cars. I think that that's just a a nickname could be a religious neighborhood watch. And you got to think about it this way. If you're in a major Orthodox Jewish neighborhood and you want to have a neighborhood watch that represents your beliefs, would you be okay having somebody patrolling your streets? I actually would. I'd be like, hey, I want to make sure that my neighborhood is protected. And if there's going to be some person that wants to put on a cape to do so, I'm okay as long as they're not being extremists. Now that video we saw, that TikTok video, I don't know how much weight I'm going to put into that actual being a report, but it depends on what that person. Yeah, it depends on what that person was doing. Are they there to just make sure their neighborhood is safe, making sure the bad players are not going to be crossing into their zip code and doing bad stuff? If that's the case, sure, by all means. But if they're spray painting the Quran, on church walls and stuff like that, then I think that's another argument altogether.
So let me ask you this, right? Because you do have cult leader vibes. So I could totally see you wanting a police force to support your ability to be polyamorous without protest. So but, I'm glad Yvonne's laughing. So, but that being said, are you okay? I don't have the video. I saw this maybe a couple of weeks ago. So don't quote me, but I'm pretty positive it was a white woman walking through a Muslim neighborhood somewhere in the country. I had no clue what state it was, but it was her walking through a neighborhood, and she was yelled at. She almost got arrested. The police came up to her. She's literally getting filmed by the police. Police are like, you need to leave this neighborhood. She's like, why? This is a neighborhood in the United States. And the police were basically saying, you're offending the people in this neighborhood because you're walking through the neighborhood uncovered. And that's offensive to them. And she said, well, I'm an American citizen. In America, I can walk however I want, wherever I want. So my question to you is, what's right? Because Bertie right here is talking about how there are Jewish neighborhoods that have that policing. I don't know if they police it to the same degree. I guess my question to you is, Jeremy, do you believe that there's a line to where it becomes too much, or do you think that there's value in saying, hey, guess what? You're in my neighborhood. You know who lives here. Follow the rules or go to a different neighborhood.
So, all right. Let's dive into what I said originally, conservative versus liberal, logical versus emotional. In situations like that, I feel
Which one's emotional in your example?
The liberal is emotional.
Okay, gotcha. Just wanted to clarify.
So I really feel like in that certain situation, it's kind of like a prostitute wearing a mini skirt and nipple clamps walking into a church on a Sunday morning. Is she going to get yelled at? Yes, she is.
Depends on the church.
Sure. But is she more than likely going to be yelled at? Yes, she is. Is she going to be told to leave? Yes, she will. If she doesn't leave, is there a potential for some form of hands being placed on body parts to push them out? Absolutely. If a cop were to walk up to that situation, what would the cop say? Hey, ma'am or sir, whichever prostitute you're thinking about, you are offending a lot of people within this building or within this area. I think it's best that you leave. Now, the argument could say, well, this is America. I have the right to wear whatever I want to wear, nipple clamps included. But you have to think about the culture in which that person is walking into. So if that white woman is walking into a very Muslim neighborhood with her shoulders and her kneecaps exposed, that is offending people. Like, for example, there's an investor that I met, and I met his wife. And as I outreached my hand to introduce myself to say, hey, it's a pleasure to meet you, I was stopped by him right away to say, that's actually offensive to us. We don't make physical contact between men and women, but thank you very much. And she did not even speak a word. And they're a Muslim family. And I got caught off guard. I'm like, holy shit, I can't even shake your hand. Like, but that is their belief. That is their culture. And that's even more so to say it's even their subculture. It's the culture below a culture. And again, I think going back to that woman walking through that neighborhood, it doesn't matter if it was Muslim or not. If the mass majority of those people living in that area live by one form of culture, we cannot be ethnocentric. And if you don't know that term, it's basically believing that our beliefs are the center of the world. We have to be a little bit more open to knowing that our beliefs are not the center of the world. And if we're walking into someone else's neighborhood, that the beliefs for what they look at is the right way of looking at it, we can't be offended if they are offended by our presence there.
Okay, two questions I have for that. Two questions. One, is that integration? Meaning you're coming to the United States and because we want you to be comfortable, we're going to give you what you want. Question number one. Question number two is, that's not what happened in England. In England, it's not that they have a Muslim neighborhood and she was walking through that. They're asking the government to implement Sharia law in the country. How is that fine, right? So what is the limit there? Because I understand, you're going to have neighborhoods of different cultures and, that happens everywhere. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. But to this level, what happens when your culture is a little bit too extremist when you do these things, right? And it's not about Muslims. It's about anyone. Sure. Right.
I think there's, to answer your question, I think there's a really clear separation on the UK, other countries versus the US, is that the US actually has its laws written around the separation of church and state. So there will never, and I'm going to say this on a very hard line, there will never be an implementation of religious laws placed above our local state government, right? So that will never happen because our Constitution says so. Now, could there be amendments in the future? Sure. But I have a feeling people would rather fix the Second Amendment. Sorry, let me not say fix. They'd rather change the Second Amendment first before they focused on any other major amendments that would need to take place. So yeah, to that point, I don't think there would ever be Sharia law that would ever pass in any form of city or zip code, because that local government would be shut down so fast.
Okay, but asking a girl to get dressed in a Muslim neighborhood, it's Sharia law. You understand? Like you're saying, you can't walk like this here.
Let me be very clear here for a second. It is Sharia law by, if you want to use that as a term.
Without the law.
It's Sharia beliefs. Yes. And we just use the term law, but it's Sharia beliefs. Their beliefs are that woman cannot be exposed the way that she is, and therefore she is offending that population. And again, we do have to be aware of not being ethnocentric. And that's something that I've always found that to be very important to know, that I'm never going to judge you on your beliefs, even if they're wrong. I was waiting. No. Okay. There you go. Thank you, Daniel. No, I'm never going to judge somebody on their beliefs, but I'm going to do my best in sharing my beliefs, and hopefully a little bit of my logic will shine through, and then maybe change some of their beliefs for where to meet in the middle.
let me ask you this, guys. I just threw the link in the chat. If you guys, I've seen some really good opinions. I want to talk about some of the comments that have been shared. If you guys want to come up and chat about this, I think it's a really, really interesting conversation. You are welcome to click that link and come and join us for a minute. So what the summary, what I'm hearing from you, Jeremy, very clearly is yes, this should be allowed. Okay, I respect that. Here's the other thing that I have for you, though. Okay, let's say there's a neighborhood that says you're not allowed to carry guns here. Period. No guns. Guns are not allowed in this neighborhood. Do you respect that rule? All right. No. But here's the thing. This is my point. A minute ago, you were acceptable with any neighborhood being comfortable with enforcing their own rules and laws, but you can't change that feeling when it's about a topic that you now have passionate opinions about. This is a blanket statement request. They're either allowed to self-police and do whatever they want in their neighborhoods, or they're not. So I guess, does your answer change, realizing the implications that can go to, where you can have a random neighborhood that says, oh, by the way, you can't carry guns here anymore. This neighborhood now encompasses all of this part of Utah. I don't care what Utah law states. I don't care what the United States Constitution states. In this neighborhood, you cannot bring your gun. Drop it at the line, please. Are you going to follow that with the same respect that you would have about covering women in the neighborhood, if you will?
The answer to that is, if there's no metal detectors, I'm continuing on as normal.
Okay. So you care about a neighborhood's sovereign right to self-govern until...
Here's the difference, though. Daniel. I'm not going to walk into that neighborhood going, woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! By the way, it's an airsoft gun, okay?
We're going to talk about proper gun handling here for a second.
Right.
But
I'm not going to be flaunting things to offend people around there, and that's the big difference. Is that, it's one thing. Like I said, the analogy of like walking in with nipple clamps. That is above and beyond going to offend people, right? But then there's going to be a fine line in an argument, and again, like I've traveled to a number of different countries, and like for example, when we were in Thailand. If you're going into a temple, they actually have at the opening of the temple, they have clothing for women to wear to cover their shoulders as to not to offend the people in that temple and things like that. And so we have to conform to the beliefs and the culture in which we are introducing ourselves into. And so in that situation, that is a temple, that is a religious place. Women are going to cover themselves up in respect to that culture and that belief that is behind those walls. Same thing goes for a neighborhood, that if that neighborhood is primarily one form of belief, one form of culture, like, can you imagine if I'm just spraying pig's blood in a Muslim neighborhood? Like, holy shit, I'm purposely offending people. Like that's not something I would do unless I'm trying to get shot.
Okay.
So yeah,
but again, good points. Let's hear from Birdie. Birdie, this is your spaghetti background. Are you in fact making spaghetti currently?
No.
Okay.
No, we moved, so then I had to redo a kitchen, and now I've decided I'm over spaghetti. No more spaghetti.
Okay, that's
I
unfortunate.
did too. My husband just said I never made it.
I was the one who made it.
He was a witness.
Oh, I just witnessed your face in spaghetti, so I'm giving credit to the wrong person. I apologize.
No.
I always made the food.
Okay.
She zoomed.
Everyone's offending me right now. Everyone's hurting my feelings. Okay, so all I wanted to say was I totally agree with you, Jeremy. I was just going to back on to back up what you're saying. I think what is, to me, the obvious thing, and I've seen this, I think, since the 90s start to slowly trickle in, is that a lot of people who are driven to ruffle feathers or make a point or get some attention will purposely try to stir the pot and go into neighborhoods or do things to we all know this. People like to do things and then like have somebody videotaping it. It's like this weird obsession in our country with, maybe I'll just say like the younger generations, that they're just obsessed with like going viral. That's their most important thing in life, right? Yep. And so to the point of like the people I think that really want to explore a neighborhood or go into a church or go into another culture are very, in my opinion, and I know this is a general statement, and I'm sure that there are people that would argue this, but in my opinion, if you're really interested in seeing what A, B, or C is like, you go in respectfully, you understand at least the basics, and try to walk into a situation and be accepted, even if you're completely different. You look different, you talk different, you dress different. You're going to try to be respectful, try to be it. And it's not that people are, I think, not that people would not accept you there just because you're slightly different, but it's that sort of reciprocal respect, right? When you show respect, you receive respect. And it's just a reciprocal thing. If you're but and I want to say this about the policing in the neighborhood. So I know in Beverly Hills, and you may know this too, Jeremy, like they don't in the Orthodox Jewish, predominantly Orthodox Jewish neighborhoods. I forget what it's called. I believe it begins with an H. I can't think of the name of it, but they have it's a unit. Yeah.
By the way, I'm Jewish. I can do that.
I've been learning about that, like in my sales community. I would say probably like 40% are from Israel, and so they're teaching me about the.
Yeah.
I'm working on
It's Hanukkah.
Hanukkah. Yeah.
hummus.
So
Hummus.
my point is that they are only allowed to exist in their like micro community with the blessing of the Beverly Hills City Council and the higher up, you know, the county, but their laws, as my husband was saying, their laws or their rules within the neighborhood. It's almost like they have, that's like the LA version of like an HOA. They have like the Jewish HOA. That's basically what it is. And they, you know, so they want people doing that. They've agreed with their temples or whatever that they're going to have that, but they have the blessing of the city, the county. And so I don't know what's going on in New York, or I don't know. I came in a little bit late, so I'm not sure what you guys were looking at, but I think that you can't their laws cannot trump the law of the land.
Or the law of the county.
Should that be funded by the community or by everybody? So like, say Beverly Hills should be funded by Beverly Hills and
Are you saying funded or founded? Sorry.
funded.
Okay.
Oh, funded. I don't know about the economics of it, but I do know that I believe that those families, you know, they pay property tax, they do all of that, right? So they all pay that. However, the Orthodox Jewish families, their temples pay for their kids' educations. So they're donating funds and those kids are going to temple. They're not even really going. I mean, am I wrong, Jeremy? I don't think they're going to the public schools.
No,
it's like
they're usually going to private schools and things like that.
Yeah. So it's like, they're not, and again, it's not just about schools, but like, I don't know how to answer, like with the trash and do they have their own trash pick? I don't know.
No, because the question is when you're asking the state to do it, like, which is what I think is happening in the UK, which started this conversation, then it's different than a community that says, okay, we are predominantly this religion and this is what we believe and we would like to implement. And then we're self-paying for it because we make good investments, whatever it is, we're self-paying for our, but when you're asking the state and everybody around, is that the same, like, is that okay?
No, I do not think that you can say like, well, I have bigger religious views also that, you know, I don't want to pay taxes for other people to get abortions, but that's I won't go off on that tangent. But like, I think that what you're saying is right. I don't think that the bigger community outside of that neighborhood or whatever should be paying for those people to create their little micro laws. That seems weird.
That
Right.
trump
So-
the laws of the state, county.
But I don't know enough about what's going on there, to be honest.
So-
Like I said,
Let me throw in there real quick. So again, guys, we look at micro, meso, and micro governments, right? And in a city council type of situation, Beverly Hills, whatever the community, the local community is, it's up to them to determine where they're going to put the tax dollars, because those are the people that are living in
Right.
that zip code where that goes. So for example,
Right.
you know, you might want to have a skate park put in your local neighborhood
Right.
because of the kids, but then other people are going to be like, no, I'd rather have my roads be repaired. Again, it's really where the city council is going to get their votes from. That's who they're most representing. And then it
That's
goes
right.
up from there. It goes from city to county, county to state, so on and so forth. So, I mean, again, guys, it's, to kind of back up what you're saying, Bertie, about like people liking to ruffle feathers. There's those people out there that I forget what they're called. They're like Constitution patriots, those douchebag idiots that walk into a government building with cameras and then they literally get in your face like this and you're like, stop filming me. And they go, it's my constitutional right to do so. And they just start a huge just bullshit where the police have to come. They waste tax dollar money just so they can go viral. Okay. Here's the thing. Just going back to that same woman that walked through the neighborhood with her shoulders exposed, that person walking into that building is of the legal right to do so. They are from U.S. law. They are protected by what they are doing, but is it the right thing to do?
Correct.
But I
Right.
also have the right to privacy. So I have the right to have my space. So if someone wants to come up and film me,
This is my husband, by the way.
Hi.
He's not on camera.
if someone comes up to film me, I can go like this
Sure.
and walk away.
Right.
Now if they continue to get in your face,
Well, then they're an aggressor.
then you get in
You
their
have the right
face
to
then.
punch them in their shit.
Right.
Right.
You punch them in their shit.
Then you punch them right in the throat.
You
Nice
throw-
throat
Yeah.
punch.
Is the throat where the shit is? I think so.
Yes.
That's
Well,
right.
For them it is.
Okay.
So anyway, so yeah, I think we all kind of like are in the same agreement. And DeMarco, I'll say this, because you are a foreigner and because you have a different point of view than
You're a
we
foreigner,
do,
bro. I'm gonna start calling you that from now on. By the way,
you're a foreigner.
American
Uh,
citizen. I'm also American citizen.
he just has a saucy
that's
accent.
that's a good 70s band.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
where my head went, Bertie.
I think that what I'll say right now is I respect your view quite highly in the sense of you have also seen other things happen around the world that a lot of the US citizens that don't travel, that don't see that shit. I've traveled and I love talking to other people in other countries, and every chance I get, tell me what you think of America, right? Like every chance I get to have that conversation, I really enjoy that. Whenever people from out of country have always come to visit, I take them shooting. They're usually super protesting in the beginning and they're like, and then by the time they're done, they go, you've opened up my eyes. I may not go rush off to go buy a bazooka tomorrow, but I at least see the views that you've shared with me. And so to that
You need to
point,
invite Jasper to go shooting with you.
yeah, I'll invite anyone to go shooting with me. I'll show you why it's the best of all things to do. Anyway, aside from that, DeMarco, I will say this. I think that your view on a religion taking hold of a lot of governments that you're aware of, that you're familiar with, I think you have a very good point to stand on. But again, going back to what I was saying, I don't think it will ever be allowed to a massive level before, if someone becomes an extremist and tries to implement Sharia law on U.S. soil, that person has now become an enemy of both sides, left and right. And that's what I think. If you look at the people that are protesting, free Gaza, okay? I don't care if you're liberal. I don't care if you're Democrat. I don't care if you're Republican or conservative. Most of us look at those people and go, you're a fucktard, right? and so to that argument, if someone were to try to push a religious ideal up and try to trump our local laws and try to change the way that we live, we would literally lift up pitchforks and torches and we would put an end to that shit.
Yeah.
Here's a I have a
would
couple
end
questions.
hard and fast.
Makes sense.
But here's the question that I have. And one, I agree with you, Jeremy, about Jamarco's perspective. full transparency, I almost didn't want to have this conversation today. I was going the, God versus science direction. Part of the reason I did it is and the reason I was apprehensive is because I said, Jamarco, you're months ahead of Americans caring, because you are familiar with what happens in Europe and how that trickles over to the United States, because you have that perspective. Most people in the United States don't care. This isn't even on their timelines yet. It's not showing up in their suggested, videos, even though it's everywhere in other parts of the world. The reason why I decided to do it was partly because of the fact that I think we do need to be prepared. We are having a conversation about 3 months probably before it's important. And so I think that having that international airsoft perspective, does Roan, shout out to the cameo from your son, Roan. Does he have his concealed carry license yet or no?
Not yet. We're going to wait till he's at least 2.
Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, so I think that perspective is important. But when I bring this up, and I want to highlight something that Birdie said here, which I think is a good point, and then I want to bring it back to the point that you just made, because I see an open opportunity for a giant contradiction in the point that you guys are trying to make, because between the self-segregation and self-governance and it becoming that polarizing, because you say the second you start implementing Sharia law, there's going to be a problem and you're going to have a war on your hands. But not really, because if you're going through a neighborhood and you're telling people they have to cover and you can't drink alcohol, what you're essentially, to a degree, doing exactly that, are you not? Right? An argument could be made for that. And then the question becomes, where's the line? And full transparency, I actually don't know my opinion on this topic. I'd have to really put thought into this before I shared one, because I think there is huge value in self-governance, but I think there's a very, very, very thin line between self-governance and self-segregation. And I think that that's when we start creating problems. And when we start using that self-governance as a safety net that makes us feel really comfortable, because familiarity tells us, well, now we don't have to follow this rule. Look how long. And then it becomes a slippery slope of, you just are creating your own world and following your own rules. And now you're kind of self-policed. And now that stuff's not getting out to the actual police. And then what happens when it's a big scandal because the FBI finds out you guys have been breaking these laws for years, and maybe you have been secretly marrying 12-year-olds, right? And because, you are, I don't know, whatever belief system thinks that that's normal, and you just decided to do it, but on the DL, and you have your own police, and you can keep that hidden, right? So where's the line with that? That's my question. That's why I don't have an opinion, because I do see the value in it. I just don't know what that line is. Birdie, you made this comment. I think you make a good point, because this new accept everybody in your space thing is, to a degree, new. It's a generation or so old. What are your thoughts?
I think, well, I just think it's an interesting, just in my life, seeing, like, when you grow up, you would go to New York, or you would go to different cities, especially bigger cities, and they had, and they still have Koreatown, Chinatown, like, Little Italy, like, they have these neighborhoods, right? And at some point, I feel like maybe it started in the 80s, or maybe really full blown in the 90s. There became this big wash of, like, everyone should be able to move into each other's neighborhoods. That's all good. But it became more about, we can all be, it was like the Coca-Cola commercial with people holding hands. I'd like to teach. And the Benetton company with all the different faces.
Get around the
That's-
world,
yeah.
join
it's like-
hands, join
Right.
the love train.
Yes,
Love train.
100%. So it's like, I get it. Like, do we need to say, like, okay, we can all live peacefully on the planet together? But it became this sort of mission for big cities, or for everybody to be like, well, I'm going to move into your neighborhood. And then it became, how I remember this so clearly, and I was fired up. I was dating a guy who went to the Citadel.
Was this before or after you married your husband?
After, of course.
After, of course. Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. So,
Wait, what?
I dated this guy. He went to the Citadel, and I remember going to his his college reunion with him. And then just after that, there was that big thing where that girl went to the Citadel and forced the Citadel to change their all male. It was a male military collegiate academy. And this girl forced herself into and made a huge national case on making the Citadel change its rules so that she could then go. So she won the case. This is a true story. Look it up. I can't remember her name. She later quit. She made them change they had to change locker rooms. They had to have a locker room for her. They had to have bathrooms for her. They literally had to unearth the entire campus that had been existing like this for eons.
They made a movie. It's called G.I. Jane.
Yes, exactly. But here's the thing, you guys, then she couldn't cut the mustard and she ended up quitting. So she unearthed this massive change. And now obviously it's, an old story now. But the point is that I think we had these self-governing sort of neighborhoods underneath the umbrella of the United States of America, right? So we have all of those neighborhoods in all of these cities in all across America, and there was self-governing. And then we made everybody mush all together and have to like swallow the everyone's equal pill. We're all the same. Look, we all look different, but we're all the same. Fine, whatever. But now people are like, you know what? I kind of just want to be with my own peeps. And so now people are like, like how many of you guys, I know I felt like this, like, can I just move somewhere with like 100 acres with all my favorite people and create like an off the grid community? Like that's, I feel like everyone I know has had that thought process especially since COVID. But now it's like a weird thing where we're trying to like reverse engineer these like neighborhoods, and how can we, and people maybe are taking it a little too far because we're still the United States, we still have laws, right? But I think it's an interesting thing that's happening. There's that shift of like, you know what, I'm tired of everybody forcing me to act like
were you here?
My identity doesn't matter. Like I can't be a Catholic white female. I can't talk about it because it's not cool to talk about it or whatever. Like I have to be in a room, like super politically correct, all of that. And I think people are kind of tired of that, but then I think you can take it too far, is to your point, DQ, is like, there's a line. And I think the line is the law of the land. Now, the tricky thing is, but the law of the land seems to skew differently depending on if you're in a red city or a blue city, right? So it's like,
and a million different factors, right? Like depending on if the conversation is politicized, you know what I mean? There's a bunch of factors, right? So I think the validity of how consistent our laws are and the way that they're enforced is a gigantic question as well. Jeremy, what were we going to say, bro?
I was just going to say, were you here at the beginning of the show in the point I was making that for the past 4 years, the right has been getting pushed further and further back? Like you could feel the rubber band stretching. And now a lot of us are just sick of it. We're sick of being told the way we're supposed to behave. We're sick of being told what words we're allowed to say, what we're not allowed to say. Like there is a shift that is happening right now that you can actually feel it. You can actually cut it with a knife. It's so thick, to me at least, to actually see the way that now the society is moving, that we've gone, you know what? Fuck you guys. What you guys have been pushing for the past 4 years, we're done. We're not going to put up with this. We're not, you know what? Like vaccine pro, vaccine con, whatever you want to say about that. It's now clear where we're people that are against vaccines. No. Don't try to guilt trip me. Fuck off. I'll accept your apology later. Right. And so again, it's the rubber band is getting pulled back tighter and tighter. And we'll see what happens in 3 months.
I'm going to ask you guys a question, because this, for me, I'm really curious about this, because I think this is maybe a more important conversation than we realize, because I genuinely believe, I said this a couple of weeks back. So to your guys' point, I almost didn't want to have this conversation. We've discussed this here. Me and Jonah were both pretty uncomfortable about talking about these things on this podcast. Why? Jeremy, you said it at the very beginning. It's this unconscious thing that's been ingrained in us. And I don't know when exactly it got ingrained. Maybe it's always been there to a degree. Maybe it's gotten worse since cancel culture increased. But Jeremy said the phrase, oh, now I'm going to lose half of my followers, right? There's this idea that if you say an opinion, people will now hate you. Now, when you say that out loud, it almost sounds crazy. You almost want to say you're silly. That's not true, but it's true. We live in a world where people will literally hate you because you made a comment about something that they disagree with. And I've mentioned it many times. I think it's childish. I think it's extremely silly. I do think that there is a very clear narrative and agenda that's being pushed on our planet. But that being said, those are the reasons among many reasons why I didn't want to even have these conversations on this podcast, because I knew it would be alienating. So what happened? What changed? A couple of things changed. One, I realized, and I was having this conversation with somebody else, I won't name their name, recently, who is scared to discuss certain topics because they believe it will financially impact their career in a very serious way. And I understand that. My decision was, I would rather be able to look at myself in the mirror and say, if I lost you because I was true to myself, I probably never had you in the first place. And if you were following me under a different impression, at least you now know the truth. Now, that is a real financial decision. Unfortunately, there is a financial decision. There might be people who say, DQ, I don't want to talk to you at all. I don't want to follow you. I don't want to join your coaching program that I was originally going to join, right? I told you I was going to join. Now I'm not joining because I realized that you don't hate Donald Trump like I hate Donald Trump. That's a real thing. And I'm losing money for that. Maybe that's a possibility. But I think that along with that, I think society is getting tired of cancel culture. I think society is getting tired of being handcuffed by fear of reprisal from their peers. And so I think we're entering this interesting age where if cancel culture loses its power, what's left? Maybe the truth, or at least people having a real voice. And how does that change the narrative? Leading all that up, here's my question, guys. The reason I think that leads up to an important point is that I genuinely believe there's a very clear globalist agenda. I think there's a plan. They want to make this globalist perspective, and they want that globalist world to look a certain way. That's fine. But in order for it to look the way they want, they're going to have to exclude some people who have strong opinions. And I believe, unfortunately, most of us here have strong opinions that they won't like. My question to you guys is the conversation we're having a potential solution to that? Is there a solution to that? Is there a world where we can get people back to just saying, you know what, I can disagree with you, and that's fine. I still respect you. Or are we going to have to start picking sides? Because if we don't, the world's going to pick them for us. What do you guys think?
What was it? Remind me real quick. I'm spacing on the name. Was it BlackRock or Blackstone? Whatever that was the global ranking system for media companies. Do you know what I'm talking
DEI.
about?
Yeah.
No. BlackRock.
Yes, DEI, BlackRock.
Okay. So examples for like that. That's where those things have to change first and foremost. Where if corporations are rewarded for supporting cancel culture and rewarded for DEI type stuff, then it's gonna control our economy. Now, I'm trying to remember. This was just recent, and I apologize, I don't have this in front of me. It's now becoming a little bit more clear on, for example, Disney. Disney is moving away from the woke culture now because they're realizing it's completely backfiring. Everything they're trying to do, Little Mermaid, all that kind of stuff, like it is not performing well for their company, and they thought that it would. And so when you look at BlackRock, where it actually gives a social ranking score to these corporations for being woke as fuck, but now those corporations are being punished for being woke as fuck, it's actually, again, it's shifting back into, I don't want to say our favor, but it's shifting back into the anti-cancel culture. Culture.
Look at Budweiser. Look what happened to Budweiser.
Yep. They got hurt.
Right. You know, so when I said in the beginning of the show that like I'm going to lose half my user base, it's funny because I actually moving in that position of not caring. If somebody disagrees with me so hard that they're going to unfollow me, that's not someone I ever want to actually have a conversation with. Right? Like I want to have conversations with people that while you may have a different perspective or a different view, you are open to hearing about my perspective and my view, because then I might be able to share things that I see that you don't, and vice versa. I'd love to be shown a new light or a new angle to something that I go, fuck, I didn't think about it that way. That's fantastic. I would love to learn about the side that sides with Gaza. Because I'm Jewish, I'm pro-Israel for sure. But what if there's another side to it that I'm just not aware of because the media or social media hasn't allowed that thumbnail to pop up on my screen yet, right? So to that argument, I'm okay losing half of my user base. I will say this though, one of the biggest struggles that I've had over the past 5 years, becoming more of an entrepreneur, becoming more of a, I don't want to say a public brand. I used to have no hesitancy at all. A millisecond it would take me to respond on social media to "you are a fucking idiot." Right? If someone said something stupid, I would call them out so fast. I wouldn't say it was a troll attempt. It was just, no, let me show you why you're wrong. And now I say I delete 99% of everything I type out because I go, no, Jeremy, this isn't doing any good for you. If anything, it might do bad for you. But if you see me on social media, on Facebook, you'll still see that I make jokes all the time, and I can't help that. But again, I mean, going back to your point, Daniel, this is a tough conversation to have, especially on the public forum. But I think we've handled it pretty well. You guys all agree with me, so I'm good.
I think you guys, I think that you guys also have to know, you know, we've all heard this too. Your vibe attracts your tribe, right?
Yeah.
I think that I think that there's something that we've learned through this process of cancel culture. And I want to say this, that I think is very true. Once upon a time, it was dinner parties that these conversations would be had, right? Or it was coffee, or a group of people would go to a bar or whatever. You would go belly to belly with people and you would have conversations. And there was always usually if you had a big enough group together, there'd be a conversation that there was disagreement. We've lost that because we now have social media. And now everybody's opinion, including ours, has been, placed out into the ether, and everybody's allowed to have an opinion about your opinion, and everyone shares it. So what it's become is just this, like, it's almost like reading through the old newspaper want ads. There were hundreds and sometimes thousands of want ads, and you would just scroll until you saw some keywords that you wanted to see, and then you would pay attention. So it's the same thing happening with social media. People, and then of course the algorithms feed you the same stuff. So I think it's great, Jeremy, to hear that, because what I think is happening, you guys, is that we're learning, hopefully, as in our human condition, to have some self-mastery, right? Some impulse control. And sometimes you let it out, and then you maybe regret it a minute later or the next day, but we're learning, this does not get me anywhere. This does not make me feel like a better person. This does not make me more open to newer ideas.
Self-gratification.
So it's just I think it's a process, but I don't think there's anything wrong with you guys losing half your base, because you're going to gain another group of people that replace them. And that's okay. You know what? This is this whole idea of let them go find their people. Let them go, and it's okay for you to have people who can have those debates. And if you can be respectful towards them, I think it's important that we model self-respect as well as respecting others. And if you can model that, you're always going to have crazies. There's always going to be crazies.
No, I think that's a fantastic point. And I think I shared this graphic. And I think that this graphic does a really good job of really just kind of representing where we've been. And why do I share this? Because a lot of us feel like we've ended up changing sides or what have you. But the reality is the environment around us has changed. What used to be considered liberal is now way crazy. What used to be considered I'm kind of like I'm in the middle, right? Like I don't know, I believe a little bit of both. I believe that, you should have, some values, and you should take care of your family and support your family and be able to defend your household. I also think that people should be able to live their own lives and love who they want to love, right? And now all of a sudden there's this idea that if you don't pick a side, you're labeled by definition a representative of the opposite side, right? So if I'm not going to trash white people, I'm racist, right? Birdie, Jeremy, you guys are white. How long have you been racist? How does that feel, right? This assumption that you hate.
My whole life.
right? It sucks, right? And so it's just like automatically. And when you hear this, and look, I've said my opinion. I told y'all I voted for George Bush and I voted for Obama. You know what I mean? You guys can keep your left-right stuff. That's a whole game as it is in my opinion in the first place. But there's these people, and you guys can look. You'll see them out there where they'll go and they'll dress in Democrat attire, and they'll go to a Trump rally, and they'll dress in MAGA attire, and they'll go to a Democrat rally, and it's night and day. Then they put something in a Trump attire. I don't care what. There was a black dude that did this in the video that I saw. He got destroyed as a black guy wearing a MAGA hat. They were disgusting to him. People were throwing stuff at him. They were calling him racist. They were saying, "Why do you hate yourself?" Horrible. This guy put Democrat shirt on, a Joe Biden shirt on, went over to the Democrat, to the Trump place. And the first thing he was like, "Hey, am I going to be safe there?" The guy was like, "Don't matter, dude. You're safe with me." Everybody that greeted him met him with love and met him with, "Hey, no problem." Now, that's not a universal example. There's going to be idiots on both sides. I'm not implying that there is. But for me, and that's the message I think is there. It's a message. If Jonah was here, he would disagree with probably, and that's fine. But for me, I think that I show that graphic because I think that, Bertie, you hit the nail on the head. It's self-governance. It's self-awareness. It's self-awareness. It's really being willing to look at the mirror and say, how did we get where we are? Where do I really stand in this thing? I don't know when I became some crazy far-right conservative, but according to a bunch of people, apparently I am. And guess what? I don't care.
Right.
I really don't care. I don't really care what you think about me. And if you aren't emotionally intelligent enough, or maybe intellectually intelligent enough to be able to control your emotions for 5 minutes, to have a real conversation with me, to be able to understand what I really believe and differentiate what I think from the labels that have been shoved down your throat, you're the problem, not me. I've said this a million times. Everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Yeah.
However, if you don't respect your opinion enough to do your homework and come to your conclusions with a fair and balanced perspective, you can't expect me to respect your opinions. You don't even respect them yourself. And that's the place.
That's such a good point. And I don't mean to jump on you.
No,
I just remember this having a dinner party in LA.
This is how you know you're in California. In the South, they call them barbecues. In LA, they call them dinner parties.
Yeah, exactly. But I was having a dinner, and this was a group of mostly Catholics and then some Protestant friends, which I'm only saying because the conversation, the debate at the table was Catholics and the history of Catholic Church versus non-denominational, whatever, the Protestant movement, Protestant Reformation. So I had a friend who's very, very well read. He's a very smart guy. And then my other friend, we were hosting the party. My other friend started getting into this debate with him. And she was just kind of poking him a little bit about being Catholic. And I was so impressed with this response. He looked across the table and he said, "Listen, I would love to have this debate with you, this conversation with you, but it is not going to be fair or balanced given the amount I have studied on both topics, knowing that I can tell you have not read this book, that, you know what I mean?" Like, he was kind of saying, "I don't want to have this debate with you. It's not even going to be fun or fair. So let's make an appointment to have the conversation at a later time after you've read some things. If you would like for me to read some things, I'm happy to read them. I probably already read them." So he was, it's sort of like that, but I think we could all agree that social media has made it's been such a divisive instrument. The mainstream media became a divisive instrument as soon as talk shows became. Do you guys remember when they started having the daytime talk shows with a panel of people talking about politics or pop culture, and then the evening talk shows started talking about more politics and pop culture? All of a sudden, when those started getting the eyeballs and the attention of the mass of people, the news agencies started shifting from reporting the news as news to sprinkling in their opinions a whole lot. And I think they did it because people were watching the talk shows and the opinion shows and thinking that was just news reporting. And so the news agencies all started to shift their talking points and started to make them opinion points. Yes, there was still some facts in there, but they started to make them more opinion based. And because of that, we have become more. And then you add social media, and I just think it's become, that's why people can't sit down together and cancel each other, because ultimately, if we didn't have social media and you were just having dinner parties and going to different places, the library, and having conversations on the train or the whatever with people, no one can cancel you. They're going to sit there and they're going to realize, like, this is a human being. I don't hate them. They're a normal person, but we just don't agree.
You know, it's funny. I was thinking while you were giving that point, we look at social media today, and like, there's actually, I don't want to say the word study, but there's actually been things that have been tested and shown that if you pulled up, or if I pulled up something on my phone, and someone that is a Democrat liberal pulls up that same exact reel on their phone, they're going to be shown different comments first out of the comment section that's either supposed to contradict what they believe to be able to stem, reaction, or it's going to support what they believe so that they get people to say, I totally agree with you. But most of the time, whenever you see something posted on your feed, you're always going to see that first comment is just something that's going to upset you, where you're going to have to chime in and give your point of view, which therefore it increases interaction. And that's exactly what social media has become. Now, back in the day, the saying was, if it bleeds, it leads, right? That was the way the media looked at something. If there was death or there was fear, then that's what was get on the headline news. That was on the front page. Now, because not everything bleeds, they basically turned every type of subject matter into some political or social argument. If it's sports, they're going to be pulling in social arguments, right? So it's going to be, oh, the Kaepernick took a knee, right? Things like that. They're going to be trying to create turmoil amongst two different sides, creating, again, a battle, which then increases interaction. Now, my question to you three and the chat, if the media, we know the media is led by the liberal side of things. We know that. It's not like opinion based. It is literally owned by people that have said that I vote blue, I vote liberal. That's what they believe in. If it was reversed and the media and social media was run by more Republicans and conservatives, what do you think social media would look like? I have an idea.
Interesting. Birdie, ladies first.
Oh,
Is that
I think it would.
offensive?
I
That might
think
be
it would
offensive.
probably look this. I mean, I honestly think it would look the same because you still have the algorithm that would.
No. The algorithm has been programmed to lean.
Oh, I
right.
see. Oh, I mean, I'm gonna say probably. I mean, I'm gonna think that it would be a little gentler and less confrontational. That's just my opinion. I don't know if
That's interesting. Jamarco, what do you think?
Well, it's the attention economy, right? So in the end, they're going to go for what makes the most money. So in my opinion, it might be different, right? If it was predominantly conservative, and let's say that all the Silicon Valley was actually, I don't know, in Texas, it would have probably been different. I think religion would have been pushed a lot more, but not strongly. And I guess the belief would change, but in the end, they have to look for things that make money. And what makes money is confrontation. So the attention economy is based on, I'm going to give you something that outrages you. So you're going to go and have a comment or send it to your friend or make comments about it, right? It's either something lovely like a dog, but that doesn't convert too much, or so
Interesting.
A little different, but probably close to what we have now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one, to anybody who is watching this who doesn't agree with Jeremy and is raging on the inside that the media is not controlled by the left, it literally factually is. Right? If you look at the CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, and all of the things that they owned, they're financially owned and controlled by people who have demonstrably shown that they have very, very, very far left-leaning agendas. They are owned and financed by people who have certain belief systems. So it makes sense that the implication that they lean one way is there. If you can present an argument that they're neutral and balanced, I'd love to hear it. I think you'd have a hard time, but different conversation. To your point, Jeremy, I have a tough time with that question because there's a couple of implications behind the question that I don't necessarily know I agree with. First implication is that the right is that much more wholesome. I think that they are less confrontational. I think that they are less prone to drama to a large degree, but they have their own different drama. You know what I mean? And so I think that to a large degree, drama would reduce, but I think to a different degree, it would just change. We would just be having drama surrounding different topics. And I think it would be dressed slightly differently. I think the order of magnitude would decrease. It wouldn't be as much drama because just go back to the same point. When you go to a rally for a Democrat versus a Republican, when something bad happened, all of the riots versus left and right, I think that's the order of magnitude that would decrease. There have been riots by people on the right. It's just not as frequent as people on the left. So I think that would be the one thing that I say. But then the other, there's the other issue that I take that I have a problem with is the fact that we assume that there is actually a difference between the left and the right. And I think that to some degree there is. And I think that for a lot of the people on our side of the camera, for us, there is. For the people we're having conversations with, there is. But I think that that line gets a lot more blurry once you get higher up into the financials of the people that are running things. I think there is a solid argument for the idea that the people who are really funding and running things behind the scenes in our world don't care about left or right. They're just selling us that story to keep us divided and keep a conversation going. It's the appearance of choice. I think that's what they're selling us, is the appearance of choice. Now,
you have a point. You have a point because Rupert Murdoch did sell to Disney, right? So, but Fox didn't really change. When you watch Fox News, they're telling the same conservative points, but they did sell to Disney. So what's going on there?
Right. And so if you understand the history behind Rupert Murdoch and all these different things, so then the question that I ask myself is, and again, this is for me, this is a sociology question. This is how do humans think and interact? And so when I look at this at an extremely zoomed out macro view, the way I see it, and I could be wrong, is that way up at the top, they don't care. They're selling us the illusion of choice, the illusion of dichotomy, the illusion of conflict, because they understand that as the farther down you go, the more that illusion becomes reality. And then that reality, because they're controlling it from the top, ends up playing into their ultimate goal. We end up creating the reality we don't want because they started the checkerboard in motion a long time ago. They started that snowball effect a long time ago. Now, how far down does that illusion start looking like reality? And I think it starts looking like reality probably at government, like state laws, state legislature, at least in our country. I think that once you get past state legislature, you know what's going on. I think you really know what's going on. And I think that the fight to really play a different game than the people behind the scenes want us to play is a different fight. Maybe there is an argument that states that that's why Trump is having such a hard time, because he is fighting that fight. I don't know. However, I think that for me, the reason I have a hard time answering that question is because I think it's all an illusion. And if the people who are funding the media really want to sow discord, they're going to sow it one way or the other. But I think if that reality wasn't true and there really was a left and right and it really was controlled by that and the people could make a difference, I think the people who lean right, if the social media was controlled by them, I don't know what it would look like. I would be very interested in seeing. I just do agree it would be different.
Maybe
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Maybe like China is, they would push like TikTok in China. It's very different from TikTok in the United States. They're pushing education on TikTok. There's a time limit, right? Maybe it would be more like that. That's
what's the remind me real quick. I'm spacing out on the name. What's the Al Jazeera? What's the news agency?
Al Jazeera.
Al Jazeera, that's what it was. Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. It's been a long day and I haven't even eaten yet. If you look at Al Jazeera, that's a more of a conservative media group.
Absolutely.
And what do they cover? They cover global politics. They cover global current events. I'll say this, and again, I'll never know because the media is always going to be leaning in the direction it's leaning now. But I imagine that if it went down a conservative route, it would move away from micro drama to macro drama. It would actually start to position America versus the world rather than local politics or LGBTQ and all that kind of stuff. And it would go back almost to like World War II era where
I
it's
agree
the
with
US versus everybody else.
I
And
agree.
right now,
I agree with that.
that's where my question was leading. That I would think that would be the major shift. We would start to see our feed would see less of local girls dancing in front of a fucking camera with lingerie on, and maybe that's just my algorithm. I don't know. But it would we'd be seeing.
Remember
more,
when I said that he would be a cult leader? We're seeing the signs.
We'd be seeing more global politics. We'd be seeing more about the global economy. We'd be understanding more about what's happening in Japan or the UK, and those things that are happening outside of our borders would also reveal to us why we're seeing massive immigration coming into America. What's happening in those other countries, other than making those immigrants into the enemy. Why are they coming in here? For what reasons? Let us learn about those other governments, those other countries, and why these things are happening. I'll leave you with this. An experience that I got to experience back in about, I want to say it was 2018. Some of you guys may know, I was a sommelier and I was a chef, and I specifically worked in Beverly Hills. And I worked at a very, very, very prominent, if probably not one of the top restaurants in the country. And I was the sommelier and I was the special events director. There was one specific event that nobody was allowed in that room other than me. The bodyguards were not allowed in there. The serving staff was not allowed in there. The busboys were not allowed in there. And there was a long table for the banquet room, a long table of 12 gentlemen. I'm not going to name who they are, but they all controlled different media outlets. And this conversation was literally them saying word for word, John, I want you to make Trump look like this in this light. I want this to happen in this light. And I want you, Larry, to make sure to cover this and make sure that this is brought to the surface. They literally had strategy sessions on how to control the way that the media was going to highlight certain things and suppress certain things. I left that day going, holy fuck. There were billions of dollars in that room with me, billions and billions and billions of dollars. And the bodyguards weren't even allowed to hear that conversation. And so that to me made me realize, okay, we're just pawns. And we already know that though, but holy shit, we're just pawns. So I'll leave it there.
In a nutshell, my belief system is based in that. And Jeremy had firsthand knowledge of that. Don't get mad if that gets turned into a short. Yeah, bro. I mean, this is the world I think we live in. And I think we're disillusioned to believe that it's anything else than that, because I don't think that people who have billions or trillions of dollars at stake are going to leave it to the chance of somebody whose the most education they have comes from their TikTok dance videos. They're just not going to do that. They're not going to put their money at risk. Nobody that wealthy would do that. And so I think it paints the picture of, okay, well then what kind of world are we in? This is where I ask the question, okay, if that's true, and I think we can wrap today's episode with this question and this point of view. If that's true, that they're playing this out at a completely different scale and we're just here. Question number one is, what does that look like? Question number two is, how does it play out? Okay, so let's talk about question number one. Well, if that's true, is there any evidence? Jeremy just gave some really fantastic evidence, but Jeremy could be lying. He could have just heard that wrong. How do you know? Right? Jeremy could be a crisis actor. He's been in like 7 mass shootings, and that's not an exaggeration. He's been in 2
actually, believe it or not, guys, nobody really knows this. I've actually been in 2 mass shootings. Route 91 in Vegas, I was there with my wife, and Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks, California.
Oh my gosh.
So
Wow.
when I say I carry firearms, I have a reason. Anyway, sorry. Thank you, Daniel.
That's crazy.
Anytime, Pumpkin. So you could say, nah, Jeremy's full of crap. He's a crisis actor. He just made all that up for likes. Okay, cool. That's one perspective. Or that's true. Well, what's some examples that it's true? In my opinion, if you look back over the last 10 years in our politics, it's pretty clear that you guys have been manipulated at scale, because they just say stuff enough until you start repeating it and believe it's true. And I could really break down 100 examples of that. It's scary. I remember when it started, and I remember looking back saying, people aren't really falling for this, right? Because it's obvious you just clipped that up. And then I remember watching it, and it was like, no, people are falling for this. Not only are people falling for it, people are fighting for the thing they just lied to you about. Now people are literally not talking to their family members for that thing. You got played. You actually got played, and you don't even know. It's on our list to discuss today. Can somebody tell me? I don't know. I am not big on politics. I'm not a big political guy. This is a new type of conversation because it's important in our world. Did Kamala Harris end up getting selected for something? Like, why is she selecting a vice president? Who decided she was the delegate? Who decided that she was the one going to be representing the Democratic? When did that officially become a thing? I saw no announcement. Maybe it didn't show up on my feed. What I did show up on my feed is this person who was probably going to be the Democratic nominee is now selecting a vice president. Is it common for unnominated representatives of a political party to name vice presidents when they're not even sure they're going to be representing the party? I don't know.
Isn't it funny how that just happened?
I really wish I knew the law behind that, because I mean, like for the people listening to this that really don't understand what Daniel is saying, here's what happened. Joe Biden said, I'm going to finish out my term. I am still the president. That does not mean that he is not the president any longer. It does not mean the vice president now takes that position. But for any elected official that's going to be running on a ballot, the people have to vote for that person to be on that ballot. Nobody voted for Kamala Harris to be the presidential electee for the Democratic side. So to Daniel's point, now all of a sudden it went from Joe got COVID and he was sick, but he's still president, to now Kamala is now the president and she's electing who her VP running mate is going to be in this following election. Yet none of the people of America actually submitted a single vote for her to represent them as the Democrat nominee. So we're trying to figure that out as well. I'm stumped. I don't know where that came from.
No idea. And it's just funny how they'll say, we have to win this election, or democracy our very democracy is being threatened. And they're literally not doing anything democratic right now.
Yeah.
They're 100% gaslighting us. And that's the part that scares me, right? And again, I don't care about Democrat, Republican. That stuff don't move me. I really don't care. I don't care. If I could go and vote for whoever I wanted without picking a side for the presidential election, I would, because I don't really care about that stuff. You can keep your donkey and your elephant. I don't care. But at some point, you got to be smart enough to know when you're getting played. You got to be smart enough to know when they're lying to you. The same people that told you that Joe Biden was completely of sound mind and capable of running the country are now not discussing the fact that a week after he destroyed the Democratic Party in a debate, is now out of the election because of COVID. And now the guy who was perfectly fit and more than capable to run our country is now no longer capable and fit. Something changed. Now they're telling you that Kamala is more than capable. Like, when are you going to stop just believing them? Like,
Right.
use your brain for 5 seconds. That's all I'm asking you. I don't need you to agree with me. I just need you to think.
But it's not about it's just because when you fight, it's like, what is that thing that people say? If you make excuses, if you continually make excuses for your limitations, you get to keep them, right? So it's the same thing. If you're constantly talking about Trump sucks, he's evil, he's a dictator, he's blah, 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 all of these things, you may not have ever liked Kamala Harris. You are almost obligated, just based on your own mouth and your own friends and your own whatever, that you have to vote for a cockroach if you don't over Trump. Like, you just, you know,
They'll pick whoever they can because they want, again, emotionally, not logically,
Right.
emotionally, they cannot fathom the idea of voting for Trump, who is a better candidate, in my opinion. Sorry, a better candidate, in my opinion, than the other running mates there are. You know what, Daniel? I'm going to make a request for you for future shows.
Yeah.
You've got to find people that are on the opposite side.
Let me ask
What
you
Jonah normally is. Jonah normally is. Go ahead, Jamarco.
a question.
Because what I want to know, or real quick, what I want to know is I would love to speak to somebody that for the past 2 years, while we, and I mean like my side of the political spectrum, have been saying it is clear as fucking day that Joe is not mentally competent, that it is clear to the world that he is not able to fulfill his duties as the president. But the entire time they were saying, no, he's fine. No, he's fine. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, now the media shifted and flipped on Joe because they realized we can't hide it anymore. Like,
I am correct. They did blame it on COVID, right? There's not something I've missed.
That was
here.
when he went down. That's when he disappeared for a few days. And people actually, like, people were saying, we need proof of life.
I still don't know that it's really him. That dude got 8 inches taller. So we ain't gonna talk about that. That's a different podcast.
Let me ask you a question, guys. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Jonah, I think in the last episode, he said the voting system is just very new. It's about, I think they implemented it in the 1950s or something.
He said that the system for nominating delegates is a fairly new system, and it's not a law. It's more of a formality that they do have the right to circumvent, I believe is what he said, to his point about Democratic or Republican nominees.
I guess that will be the answer, the main answer they will give you when you ask, how is Kamala in power right now? The answer is what Jonah said last.
I will. Here's what I'll say to a whole other thing. Let's assume that she's not officially the pick.
I don't think
it is possible that they're just, again, playing us, pandering. Is what they're doing. They're pandering. They're playing us because people are silly and they fall for gullible stuff. And it's possible that they're just testing. They're saying, all right, let's just see if we can get her. Let's let her pick a VP. Let's see how this works. And if they realize that she's not polling in the right directions, they may completely just switch it all up and hit us with Michelle or somebody else.
Well, that's where I think that they can't do that.
No, they can on the 19th.
No, they can. There was you saw that post that I made.
But they have to do it within a certain amount of days before the election.
Yeah, but they have the Democratic Convention on August 19th, so that's when they will have to make.
So she run by virtual roll call. Wait, is this true? Hold on. This is what happens when you don't care about politics enough to go into detail.
I didn't know that. But anyways, I think the final decision will be made then, and I believe what DQ is saying, which is A/B testing, is what's happening right now.
Right. Well, I mean, you also saw, guys. I know
don't have anybody else.
I know we're trying to wrap this up, but like Daniel, you saw there was a post that I basically snapped back at when we saw it on Facebook, where there was a meme that went around that said Kamala raised the most amount of money ever and for herself, and it was literally it's proven that no, they just literally changed the name on the account. All the dollars
she is the official Democratic nominee. It's official as of today, which I guess is why she same day named the thing. There we go.
Sorry about that. Then I guess the 19th they will just confirm it. I guess.
Sure. They'll make it official. They'll brand her.
And her choice is interesting too, but I know we don't need to talk about that.
We don't need to talk about that. It's not going to go anywhere. And again, I feel like this podcast has turned into just like we know where this is going, but it's fun to watch, and I wish her luck.
Look, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a different podcast to talk about her history. She scares me. Like the fact that people trust her so blindly is scary to me. But people probably feel the same way about people who trust Trump. So I get that. That's why it's its own conversation. But I just think that my takeaway from all of this, and I'm going to ask the question again, look at Iran and Israel right now. They are moments potentially away, if something hasn't already happened, from a very serious war that has the potential to turn into a world war. It's funny. And I would love to hear Jonah's response to this, because Jonah and I have a pending debate on, is Trump a dictator? He believes that Trump is a threat to democracy, and I have to debate the contrary. And that's fine. We'll have that conversation. But what's interesting,
I think he's a dick. I don't think he's a dictator.
here, that's a solid argument. Yvonne calls me that at least 17 times a day, in fairness. So usually it's when I'm talking to other people, though, because I'm on Zoom all day long. She's like, oh my God, you're such a dick. Oh my God. She just but here's the thing. For me, when you look at this situation, the amount of people who said Trump's going to cause World War III, and he stopped every war on the planet. And now we are closer to World War III than we have ever been, to my knowledge. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, somebody.
I have
What's that, Jamarco?
I have a correction to make.
Please make a correction.
All right, the correction to make is he did not stop every war. Putin just didn't move any further during his administration. But Putin was in Ukraine during the Obama administration. We can talk about Russia, Ukraine as much as
Was that a war or a conflict at that point?
Let's take it to another debate because that's a long one. You know, my girlfriend is Ukrainian, so I use very talker mentality when it comes to Russia and Ukraine. I change it 180. I can explain why. We can go in detail for that.
So short of the discrepancy of when the Ukraine war started, because according to what we know in Western media, all of that was started during the Biden campaign.
No, okay, so
or at least it was escalated.
So
guys, I apologize. I have dinner waiting for me.
Okay.
And I know this can go a lot further.
Let's wrap this up. We won't go down this road. Here's what we'll say. We can say to wrap this up. So with an asterisk to that, thank you for Gianmarco for completely destroying the closing to get completely analytical.
This is just a part two. To be
this just opens the door to the part two. Gianmarco didn't even read the room. It's okay. It's all right. We'll do this next time. No, but okay. That there is obviously stuff going on. But what we know today is that there are tons of global conflicts right now. There wasn't global conflicts that we were aware of. And to that point, there's probably conflicts that we're not aware of. I wonder what the Democrats have to say about that. They were worried about Trump starting almost World War III. And one point that does remain true is we're closer to World War III than we've ever been, I think, in history, right? Since World War II. What's your thought about that? How do you reconcile that when you were so ready to blame Trump for that happening and it was actually your nominee that made that happen? Because Iran and Israel is a very serious thing. I have people who have family that are there right now and they're freaking out every single day. I think the world that we live in is in a very, very serious place. I think we're at a lot of different tipping points. And I think that my takeaway is we can't control what the government's going to do. I think we can do our best, but at the end of the day, they're going to play whatever games they're going to play. I think it's our responsibility to take care of ourselves and to find your tribe, if you will, right? According to Birding's example earlier, and really just do yourself to get prepared. I think there's a lot of things you could do to get prepared. Maybe we have a conversation about that one day. Financially, from a lifestyle standpoint, right? Are you planting food? Are you doing there? Maybe we can make a podcast around that. But I think it's time for us to get prepared. I guess my final question is, and Birdie, you can give your perspective now. Jeremy, your perspective doesn't change. You think things have the potential to get real bad. You're stocking up on tomato soup and bullets.
Yep.
All right. Gianmarco, you never officially answered the question last time.
You go away. Because if
you go to a different country, you leave America altogether, you go to Paraguay.
If it gets to World War III, you want to be where they're not left or right. They're not with Putin or against Putin, with Xi Jinping or against Xi Jinping. You want to be somewhere where they just don't care. Because if they do one, I don't have a bunker. And I know what a nuke does. So
bunkers would come in
I
handy.
actually
So
have a bomb shelter for real downstairs.
Okay. All right, everybody. Birdie's going to share her address in the chat. So if you guys,
we're getting hit by that stupid Hurricane Debbie, who's super rude. But our bomb shelter took in water this morning, so it's not that fair. It's obviously not.
It's a bomb swimming pool at this point.
Yeah, it's a bomb
swimming pool. Yeah.
Okay, so Birdie, and honestly, everybody else in the chat, I would love to hear your opinions on this. Birdie, you can speak for the people, I guess, right now. Question
I'd love to
is,
speak for the people.
as you should. You do it well. So here's my question. One, are we fine? Is everything going to be okay and we should just relax? Or Is stuff going to get scary? And if so, what do we do?
Oh gosh, I wake up every day and have this internal battle with myself with that same question. It's all I wake up instantly thinking code red, and then I have to talk myself off the ledge so I can exist for the day. So, my husband bought a 50-pound bag of flour. Just throwing that out there. Because you can make lots of bread with that.
Yep.
We'll be fat, but we'll be fed. I think that, I actually try not to dive into the minutia of the news and what's happened. I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but I try not to go too far down the rabbit hole when it's just it could be, or watch out, it might be, because I just can't go there. I have to sort of take one day at a time, even though we are prepared kind of people. However, I will say this. It seems like I feel like this has been said many times in my life. Like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of weird stuff going on. Like, I feel like I've lived in that. There's a lot of weird stuff going on in the world for a long time. But I would feel like right now, with the markets crashing the way they just did, with this crazy thing with Joe Biden and Kamala, and now this crazy guy from Wisconsin that she picked, and Trump being a convicted felon, and now it's like, what is going on? I just feel like, and I don't know. I don't know what to say other than I don't think it's possible to walk around and go, just chill out, don't worry about it. I think it's wise to look at the writing on the wall and prepare to the point where you could pivot quickly. But I don't think it's wise to live in a constant heightened cortisol level. I don't think that's smart either. I also do have faith. So I try to balance faith and logic and common sense, all of those things.
Yeah, I think that's smart. I think that one of the biggest things that's becoming, at least for me, I believe for Jonah as well, a big takeaway from this conversation and from what we talk about in this podcast is it's not just to talk about the doom and gloom and the things that are happening, but it's to give the takeaways of what can you do about it, right? Surround yourself with community. Challenge yourself to think outside of the box. Challenge yourself to think, period, for yourself, ideally, right? And make independent decisions and use your brain, because we've been trained and programmed intentionally to stop doing that for most of our lives. It's a difficult thing to break out of, but I think it's empowering. And I think when you do that and you start looking at who's around you, I think Birdie's right. A lot of people, I would love to. It's a goal of mine. Get a couple 100 acres and create a compound and surround yourself, start growing your own food. Just get back to where you actually are eating real food. I think that we may not be able to control the conversations that take place in that room that Jeremy told us about, but we can control the actions and the decisions that we make tomorrow. We can control the things that we do that put us in a position to be prepared and safe for ourselves and our families, come what may. And I think that dialogue that we start having, challenging ourselves to talk to people, you realize that once you let the news and the influence get out of the way, there is more for you than against you. And there is probably people that you can trust around you. And I think that that's the big takeaway here. I don't know what's going to happen. I do think that things are going to get bad, but I think that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I do think that we are that light as long as we choose to do so. So that being said, guys, thank you so much for coming and hanging out. Birdie, thank you for coming and hanging out with us yet again. You are always welcome.
Thank you.
Jeremy, I appreciate you coming out here looking handsome, bringing the whole family. We got to see a visit. I know you're going to come back for more. You definitely got to be here for the Second Amendment battle. You and Jasper can fight that out. Also, next week, I don't know. Next week, if something crazy happens in the world, we may come back to current events, but we also may go God versus science. Is evolution a thing? Does it still carry?
Oh my gosh.
And it might be a whole thing. Jamarco might need help if he's representing the science side of things. If that gives you guys a hint as to where I'm going to stand on this, but you never know. We can switch it up.
Why isn't science and what is it? Science and what?
It's technically it's technically inflammatory. It's God versus science. I don't think that's a
Oh,
real
God,
thing.
I got it.
We're just using it as a title. You like just to give you the spoiler alert. But we are going to debate, is evolution a real thing? Should we be teaching this in schools? So that may be next week. Keep yourselves tuned to the posts and whatnot. We'll be talking about it this week. All of you guys are welcome. If you guys know somebody that's a scientist and is very versed in these topics, I would love to have them up here for that conversation. Jeremy, you're a scientist and a sommelier?
Yeah,
And a crisis
I
actor?
played one in a movie once.
Correct.
And I was a
Me
pizza
too.
delivery boy. And yeah, anyway.
I love it. Gianmarco, bro, appreciate you guys. This podcast probably wouldn't exist, at least in the same fashion, if it wasn't for Gianmarco. Appreciate you coming up here, bro. I know you have a lot more to say. I'm going to try to urge you to start saying those things more.
All right.
Well done. Until then, guys, go do something special. Make an impact in
Thanks,
somebody's life. Challenge yourself to think for yourself. We love you. Until next time, have a good one.